Couple finds man in the desert. Pulling him up, they found the shock of their lives under him. Victoria was driving with her husband Joe to the city for a business convention when she picked up a dirty hitchhiker on the highway. At the end of their journey, she was shocked to learn the man in the car seat beside her was none other than her daughter's fiancé. The day was mediocre, not too warm, not too windy, with a gentle breeze kissing her face through the half-open car window. Victoria was on her way to the city for a business event where she was supposed to deliver a speech. At 47, Victoria was a businesswoman, a mother, a widowed wife, and much more. In fact, she had always been a strong, independent woman, whether it was raising her only child, managing her career, or caring for her orphaned younger self. But all that was in the past, and now Victoria had the business convention on her mind. As she was driving along the clear highway roads, listening to her all-time favorite Beatles, Here Comes the Sun, a man suddenly jumped in front of her car, and she applied the brakes just in time. "Wow!" she gasped as the car tires screeched on the road. "What was that? Is he insane?" The young man raised his head and smiled sillily at her through the windshield, then approached her car window. "Can you give me a ride to the city, ma'am?" he asked. "I need to see my parents, and I wouldn't have made such a dramatic jump if it wasn't necessary." "Pardon me," said Victoria, throwing him a disgusted look. Then she noticed his ragged appearance and shook her head. "Nope, sorry, but I don't give a lift to strangers. You could harm me for all I know." He laughed. "Take my ID and send it to whoever you like. I'm not a threat. Trust me. I have friends in the police, and I'll send it to them. Is that okay, Mr. I'm not a threat?" He laughed again. "You're funny. Sure, go ahead," he said, handing her his ID. "My name is Chris, by the way." "All right, then," Victoria said, snapping a photo of his ID and sending it to her friends, which included people in the police, too. "I'm Victoria. Hop in." As Chris settled in the car and she began driving, Victoria asked, "So what's the big emergency for which you had to risk your life by jumping in front of my car?" "My mom and dad," he said. "Sorry if I shocked you earlier. They're elderly and have no one but me, so I'm paying them a visit. Nice car, by the way." "Thanks," said Victoria. "Why are you going to the city, if you don't mind me asking?" he asked. "I'm attending a business convention," she replied, "and I have to meet some business clients." "Really?" he asked. "My fiancé's mom, too. She's a businesswoman, too. I recently proposed to my girlfriend, and she said yes, and sorry, I guess I overshared." "You have an accent," said Victoria with a smile, "and from the way you speak, you appear to be well educated. Don't mind it, but your appearance leads me to believe otherwise. I'm not the type to sugarcoat things." "Oh, no, that's fine," chuckled Chris. "I was born in Spain, and I spent most of my childhood there. Then Dad relocated here, and the family moved with him. Dad had a business here, but he's no longer able to look after it, now that he's old. My brother runs it." "And you?" "Oh, I work many jobs. I don't stick to one thing. I'm still figuring out what piques my interest the most. You know about the only property just before we enter the city? That one house?" "It's yours?" asked Victoria. "I thought nobody lived there." "I don't blame you," he admitted. "My parents are lonely, and my brother works abroad, so all they have is me." Victoria and Chris talked the entire ride as if they were best friends who had known each other for years. Victoria forgot she was speaking to someone she had only recently met, which was unusual for her. As Chris's destination arrived, he thanked Victoria, and she said, "You are not a threat, except you talk a lot." He smiled as he hung his backpack on his shoulders. "Thanks for the ride. Actually," he stopped and pulled out his phone from his pocket. "She's the one, my fiancée. I don't know why, but I wanted to show her picture to you." Victoria had to swallow hard as she looked at the picture on Chris's phone. "Brittany?" she gasped. "She's your what?" "You know her?" asked Chris with a silly laugh, but Victoria just couldn't answer. She had shock and anger all over her face. She couldn't believe that the dirty-looking man she'd picked up in the middle of the highway, who didn't stick to anything in particular and was so reckless as to jump in front of her car for a lift, was her daughter's fiancé. "Daughter!" yelled Victoria. "She's my daughter. How can Brittany marry someone like you? Listen, boy, stay away from my daughter, all right?" "Away? Whoa, whoa, whoa," Chris said casually. "Slow down, ma'am. Your daughter is old enough to make her own choices. Stop ordering her around. Anyway, thanks for the ride and goodbye." And Chris walked away. Victoria wanted someone smart, reliable, and wealthy for her daughter. She didn't want a reckless guy like Chris in her life, but she was well aware that Brittany would not listen to her. She never did. Victoria and Brittany had a strained relationship, and Victoria was entirely to blame. She was too demanding of her daughter, expecting her to be as perfect as she was. But Brittany was not like her. She was like the rain on a sunny afternoon, unusual but beautiful. But despite everything, Victoria was worried about her daughter and decided to follow Chris to his house to see if he was at least an honest man. Was he really going to see his parents? Victoria studied his house from afar. Through the living room window, she could see him taking care of an elderly couple sitting and watching TV. He washed their faces, fed them something, and then went to the kitchen to cook. Perhaps he's not such a bad guy after all, she reasoned. Kids nowadays don't take care of their parents, and then he's looking after his elderly parents. Victoria walked to the house, knocked on the door, and apologized. Chris was the one who opened the door. "Can I come in?" she said. "I'm sorry about what happened before." "It's fine," said Chris, "but I'm a little busy. It's time for Mom and Dad to eat." "I'd like to meet them," Victoria said. "Do they know about Brittany and you?" "Yes, they do," he said. "You know what? Just come in. It's okay, I guess." So Victoria met Chris's parents and realized Brittany had found a treasure for herself. Chris worked night shifts in another city, then returned home to care for his parents before leaving for work in the evenings. He had a caretaker look after his parents while he was away, but he didn't want them to feel as if they didn't have family, so he paid them daily visits. "Do you honestly believe Brittany would be unlucky to have me as her husband?" he asked. "I'll keep her happy, Victoria." "No," said Victoria eventually. "I think she couldn't have found a more perfect man. It was lovely meeting you and your family, Chris. It really was." 6 months later, Brittany and Chris got married, and Victoria's relationship with her daughter improved, and Chris never disappointed Tina and Brittany. Never. What can we learn from this story? Don't be too quick to judge someone. Victoria decided Chris was the wrong choice for her daughter based on his reckless attitude, but she was mistaken. Instead of dismissing your children's choices, try to understand them. If Victoria hadn't imposed her opinions on Brittany, their relationship would have long improved. Be kind with the needy people. That's what made the difference. A homeless man with hunger pains approached the counter at a local Burger King, hoping to get anything with only 50 cents. And instead of turning the man away, the teenager worked as a cashier, proved his good heart with an incredible act of kindness. Matthew Resendez was working the evening shift at a local Burger King in San Antonio, Texas 2 years ago when he noticed a homeless man entering the place. The man only had a handful of coins, but instead of asking for a free meal, the man wanted to know what he could get for his 50 cents. Knowing that the menu had nothing for such a low amount, Matthew asked the man, like any other customer, what would he like to order if he had enough money, and the man replied that anything would be good to calm down his hunger pains. The teenager then proceeded to ring up a hearty meal, brought his debit card, and paid for it. He then gave the receipt to the man and told him to sit and relax while he waited for the order to be ready, getting the man's gratitude in return. Now that would be the perfect end to a random act of kindness, but Matthew's mother, Michelle Resendez, shared the story of her son's good deed on Facebook to prove others that sometimes acts of kindness don't go unnoticed to others. The proud mom revealed that without her son noticing, a woman witnessed the entire exchange between him and the homeless man. Moved by the teen's actions, the unknown woman proceeded to shower Matthew with the same generosity he showed the other guy. Not only did she write the company to let him know about the caring employee they had working for them, but she also rewarded my son with a very generous tip, Michelle explained on Facebook post. Matthew received a $100 bill from the woman. His proud mom added, "So proud to be his mom, and I can pat myself on the back knowing that I've played a part in raising this big-hearted young man." Michelle's post went viral with over 140,000 reactions and 40,000 shares, and most people agreed that Matthew's actions prove he was raised to show compassion and generosity for others. Like Matthew, there are dozens of people helping others out on a daily basis. Sometimes these actions remain unknown, and others, they go around the world, thanks to the power of social media. Like it happened to a Hooters waitress who shared her story on Facebook. Marissa Pena took to Facebook and explained that she noticed a man named Rick sitting by himself on a curb across the street while pulling into work on February 4, 2016. After approaching the man, Pena asked him if he was okay, to which he replied with a barely audible no. When asked if he was hungry, the man said very. Then Pena helped the man up and introduced herself, stating that she worked at Hooters and they'd be happy to welcome him in. Then she sat the man down and told him that he could order whatever he wanted on her. People from another table who noticed the situation ordered Rick some dessert. Before leaving, Pena requested him to take a picture with her, and the man happily agreed. He even pulled out a small comb and gave his beard a brief grooming. After the photo was taken, Rick was so overwhelmed by Pena's kind gesture that he offered her his necklace.